Hey guys, welcome to another podcast. I know it's been a long time, but I will say the wait has been absolutely worth it. Today's guest is none other than Team Ninja's own community manager, Master. Welcome to this podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Hey man, thank you for having me on here. I'm glad we were able to make something work out. I know we kind of chatted about it in the past and we weren't sure we are going to make something happen, but got a little bit of time, so I'm on here.
Well, thank you. You've been incredibly busy. What's your, I've wanted to know, what's it like being a community manager for some company as crazy as Team Ninjas? Please tell me about it. I'd like to know.
I think it's for any community manager for any company or team, I guess. It's just a matter of keeping track of what's going on. It's kind of what the job description is about. It's like seeing what the community is doing. It kind of all blends in to social media engagement, community development, and just talking with people and just kind of getting to know people. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, there's a lot of other things that kind of go on behind the scenes, but that's kind of like the general part of it.
It sounds like an understatement to the amount of work that you've had to do, because I've been involved with a Discord of my own, and just trying to manage just one individualized Discord, it's been a lot of work, and I've needed a lot of help from various other people. So I cannot imagine the workload that someone in an official capacity must have to do. So I want to say, on behalf of all of us in our community, thank you so much for all the work that you've done. And I'm sure there's scores of things you've done that we don't even know about and probably will never really be able to know about or appreciate. So thank you so much for that.
Appreciate it. I'm very thankful for the community, honestly, because the community has been very helpful as well. I think that's kind of interesting to me, because the last project I was on was obviously Dead or Alive. So I come from Dead or Alive into the Nioh project as it was coming. As DOA was kind of finishing its cycle. I'm jumping onto Nioh, so a lot of the people on the Nioh side have been, for the most part, very welcoming. So I like that. It helps with the process, but it makes communication a lot easier.
That is certainly good, and we've done our best to try to make your job as easy as possible. Now, of course, we're going to be imperfect about that, but I know one thing that the community, or at least my community, has been very happy about, is that I remember sometime back, I had asked you, is there anything that we could do in order to make things easier for you? And I was very surprised, actually, when you had said, hey, just give us like a wish list of your suggestions. And for me, I was just thinking, like, this is what I've been building up to. And then for you to just come out and say it, I'm like, this is awesome. And so then on our ends, we tried to do our best to consolidate, I guess, all of our community concerns and like the most concise thing, which wasn't really possible, but we tried our best. And now I think we were just happy that people like yourself, and of course representing the company at large, were willing to not only listen to what we had to say, but use that in some level in regards to some of the content that's come out for Nioh 2. I know players like myself were absolutely enthusiastic about the changes in patch 1.24 and 1.25, where there were adjustments to weapons. And so for someone like me who was like, hey, I wish this weapon would function a little better in this capacity, and then all of a sudden it does, but it's beyond my wildest expectations. I'm like, this is awesome, this is great. So I think that whole process would not have been possible without not only your willingness to listen to us, but also the company's willingness to listen to us in any way, shape, or form. So again, I know this is probably just going to be like me shilling and me saying thank you all the time, but I have to say thank you so much for that.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, that's kind of, I always say that the idea is, I guess, in a community management role, is to try to get as much feedback as possible, as well as kind of seeing trends as to what's going on in the community, rather it be, something, some people are really happy about something, or maybe some people are a little bit, upset about something, and just kind of putting that all together and at the very least, presenting that to, the team. So when you approached me, I was just like, in the middle of other things as well, but I was thinking, why not? I mean, it's just an additional tool for the team, if anything else. and they can take that feedback, like a lot of the other feedback during like betas and whatnot, and then they can decide what they feel is best. So I'm glad to hear that, some people have seen some of these adjustments that were part of those, the list that was submitted, and that it got adjusted, because that's kind of the whole idea, is communication with the community.
Right, and of course, you being the community manager, you bear quite a lot of, I guess, a lot of the responsibility does fall on your shoulders, so that's quite a lot to balance. But you had talked about Dead or Alive a little bit, and truth be told, I don't know that much about it. So could you perhaps elucidate us to exactly what your gaming background is?
Yeah, absolutely. So my gaming background in general, I think like most people, is, I played it since I was a kid, right? Like, I feel like I'm gonna date myself here with the original NES, and and then of course after Super Nintendo and all that stuff. So I come from those games. Now back in the day, I definitely wasn't not in a position to own several games like some of my friends, close friends, but I would always have just a handful of games and just kind of went from there and rented out other games. But one of the things was my brother was a big time fighting game fan. So I kind of grew up with fighting games as well as other games, general games like Sonic and Mario and whatnot. Eventually, I came across a game called Dead or Alive. And I was playing it on the Sega Dreamcast. I originally saw a demo of it through a friend of mine. And I was like, wow, this game looks incredible. Back in those days, you see a game like Dead or Alive and you're just like, what is going on? Like, this game looks amazing. Looks wise, and then it also played well too, so it only added to it. So I started playing DOA for a long time, and the crazy thing is I ended up competing in it and ended up becoming a professional gamer at Dead or Alive for a few years. I met the old team back then, the old Team Ninja, so I knew the old team then, and then eventually started talking to the new team, and then kind of just went crazy from there. Really, it's just kind of all snowball. It was always different things going on. I would be on, either on a stream or on a commercial or a TV show. It was kind of insane. It's almost hard to even say it because it doesn't even sound real.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, I know the idea of like competitive gaming and esports and whatever it's something that's to be mocked at, but then again, lived it to some extent, so you have firsthand experience of what that was like. So how does that transition into you working for the very company that produced a game that you were so competitive in?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, it wasn't what do you call it? I guess it was a lot of it, like most things in life, I guess, is not really planned. But it was more like I was very involved, similar to how yourself and several others in the Nioh community are in regards to, community involvement, helpful videos and just information, the sharing of information. I've been a big advocate about that, especially in the fighting game space with Dead or Alive, because in fighting games, it's always about holding your cards until you have to show them, so you can try to win and compete at rather it be tournaments or online events. So people are very hesitant to share information because they don't want to have it stolen and used against themselves. And I've always been a huge advocate of sharing information, helping the younger players, younger meaning the less knowledgeable players, maybe the ones that are not as competitive or whatnot, or maybe just don't know character movesets. So I've always been huge about sharing that information and helping other people, because the reality is, at least the way back then when I would see it is, the more people that learn your game, the more people will play it. And the more people that play it means there's just more people for you to play with in the long run. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, it just made overall sense to just continue doing that. And I was always involved with community in many different things, rather it be hosting a tournament, participating in tournaments and traveling, posting information, meeting people. So in a lot of these cases, I knew a lot of that community by name in some cases, or rather by their alias in other cases. If I didn't know their actual name, I knew at least their alias. And it was just communication with the community in that sense of being community driven. And then I would always started talking to the team at some of these events, some of the team members from time to time. And I guess you can say a positive relationship kind of grew from that. And then I guess an opportunity presented itself, and I ended up joining the team.
Wow, that's quite the story.
That's sort of the short version. I don't want to give you a long dragged out one.
Oh yes, you're gonna tell us the specific combos you were doing with specific characters. Yes, totally relevant.
Right.
It is rather interesting that you mentioned that your sort of philosophy was basically sharing sort of the text so that more players had access to it. And I was kind of thinking, I know at least in my sort of endeavors when it comes to Nioh, like I've just been doing stuff that I felt would be beneficial to the Nioh scene in general, so to have a more enjoyable experience for everybody, be as inclusive as possible and whatnot, because I see so much potential in the product and whatnot, and, you know, I can talk about that for ages. But it is rather interesting that even in a competitive setting, you still felt the compuncture, or I guess the desire to share that, because it would arguably almost disadvantage you, but it's still impressive you did that. I have to say it's more impressive that you're doing that compared to, say, where I've just been like, here's some cool things you can do to like make your play more meaningful. Like there's no like cost benefit analysis that I'm doing whatsoever. It's not like, oh no, I told someone how to do, say, item cancel tech. It's not going to like negatively affect me. But whereas, say, someone understanding, hey, these are moves you can do with X, Y, or Z character that potentially, say, counter X, Y, or Z character certain method of play, that would have a direct impact to you. So I do think big ups to you for that. Like that's really impressive in my book anyway.
Yeah, it was. I would have friends that would tell me back in those days, like, just tell me, like, why would you do that? Like, why would you share all this information when you know it can be used against you? And I guess my thought process for that was, well, I know I'm a good player. I don't know how good I am, and that's kind of the journey I'm on right now. So I think it's best to have all the information available to everybody, so that way when the competition happens or everything takes place, no matter how many videos they saw about me or how many things I explained, at the very end, to me, I would know I'll have some kind of sense of fulfillment in by knowing that all the information was out there and you still didn't win. You know what I mean? So there's no excuse. I took all the excuses out the picture.
That's actually low-key hilarious. It's like, yo, man, you knew everything. You still couldn't beat me, man. You suck.
I told you how to beat me, and you still couldn't beat me. So that was kind of my thought process, and I you know, when I look back at those competitive moments, it was, you know, it was a strange time. It was a much different time too. You know, everything was much different, and there was so many different things going on, and trash talk was like way bigger than it felt like. But it was crazy. You know, I tried to help the community as best I could. And, you know, lo and behold, at one point, I was able to win a world championship. So it was kind of weird. It all happened for a reason, I guess. Well,
yeah. I mean, everything does happen for a reason, for sure. And in this case, it seems to have worked in your favor. And I think I think one thing that's very interesting from how you've talked about this is that, and I'm just driving the same point home, your focus has already naturally been overall very community focused. Like, it's just evident. It's about bringing everybody up as opposed to, say, bringing only a select few people up at the expense of many others. So I generally think, and this is just my personal opinion, that's a wonderful asset to gamers all across, I guess, just any gaming community. So yeah, I think Team Ninja for sure has got it. I mean, I wouldn't want anybody else to manage my community except someone who actually cares about the community, and your track record illustrates that. So there you go. You can hold that. You can have a new mental gold star that you can put on your back from me, man. Poofalama approved.
There you go. Poofalama approved. I like that.
Not Poofy. Okay, not Poofy. Poofalama approved.
Poofalama approved. I got you. Well, I do appreciate that. Obviously, I think the most important thing is to make sure the community feels comfortable, knowing that there's some kind of, I guess, dialogue or some kind of line of communication. And I think that's very meaningful to a lot of people. I know back when I was doing a lot of the stuff that I was doing, that was kind of all we ever wanted, you know, some kind of line of communication. And back then it was even harder than it is today, because social media wasn't as, you know, popular then, or didn't even exist in some cases. So I'm glad I'm able to help any community really that I'm looking over, rather it be the DOA community or the Nioh community or any other projects that come down the line. So yeah, I mean, I'm a community guy. I came from the community, so I think that's I can relate to a lot of the things and concerns, and I definitely like to bring as many people up as possible. If anybody that has questions, and if I don't have the answer to the question, I mean, I'm very understanding of that. I'm humble in the sense that I just don't know it, but let me see if I can find out, and if I can't find out, maybe somebody else in the community may know about it.
I guess with that being said, so what are probably some of the biggest challenges that you've had since? Is that something you can talk about, by the way? Just like some of the things that you've perhaps envision for the future, or just present challenges that perhaps are going on? Because I mean, it sounds like you have a lot on your plate based on just what I know about you and scope of the projects you've been working on. But what can you tell us in regards to some of the challenges that you faced to this day?
It's just some of the challenges, and I think in general for any community manager is just trying to find out how to optimize getting information from as many different sources as possible. So like I'll just be kind of scrambling in different areas, different Discords, Reddit, Twitter, and different social media platforms or whatnot, and just trying to gather any information regarding what are people saying about a project that I'm on, and how do they feel, and also trying to keep people engaged too. Some of these posts that come out, you'll see, and maybe one of them is not as engaging as I'd like it to be, and I'm just like, okay, something needs to change. What other options do we have? So those are just general challenges that I think any community manager or even a social media manager will come across. But there's the challenge, I think, in some cases that makes it really difficult is when you have to juggle like several projects at a time. And that's probably the biggest hurdle, because you're either going from one project to the next one, or you're holding on to two projects, and you're just trying to make sure that nobody gets left behind. And since I'm a guy from community, I that's the last feeling I want. It's like, oh man, I didn't pay attention to this dude, or I forgot about this dude. Now I feel bad because I know what it's like to be in that position, just trying to get heard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. One thing that actually surprised me was, and this was way before I had even really known of your existence. So for me, Nioh's been most enjoyable for me in an action-oriented sense. So very much in the same vein as Ninja Gaiden. In fact, that's the only reason I'm really playing Nioh, is because I played Ninja Gaiden quite a lot. And cool. I kind of had this expectation set in my mind. And so when I came to Nioh, I pretty much was trying to treat it the same way. And then what surprised me for Nioh 2 was that a lot of the things I was used to from Nioh 1 didn't necessarily work. But eventually it kind of clicked that, hey, I should try something a little different, try to have an open mind in regards to certain systems. So the system I'm referring to, for example, was how in Nioh 1 there was no yokai shift, no shiftling mechanics whatsoever, no soul cores. So all the stuff revolved around you managing your ki and battling your enemies with builds and whatnot. And then in Nioh 2, they added the whole dimension of the shiftling stuff. And so a lot of the emphasis on samurai-related abilities and using your active skills felt a little less. And since I hadn't dabbled with the shiftling stuff, I felt initially very dissatisfied, because I would keep thinking, man, I can't use my ki in the same way that I did with Nioh 1. But once I had taken that leap of faith, so to speak, and honestly it was more because I saw a player in one of my combo mods, he had showcased using yokai skills. And when I saw him incorporate that with existing play, I thought, why didn't I just have an open mind and try this? And so ever since I've tried that, it made the whole game a lot more enjoyable. And then beyond that, since I've been an action-oriented player, when the latest, I think, Dream of the Wise DLC and DLC 2 came out for Nioh 2, they introduced all sorts of graces and all sorts of builds. And I'm not really too big on builds, but what was so surprising to me was that all of a sudden the way that they have concocted these ideas for build making, for graces and sets and whatnot, genuinely interest me. I thought, you know what, if I had the time, I would actually devote myself to trying this. But wait, then there's also this, and then there's that, and then there's this. And I thought, this is amazing. For someone like me, who generally doesn't like this stuff at all of a sudden I care about it. I think just that whole process is a testament to how not only does Team Ninja actually listen to us, but also is able to go above and beyond in terms of their creativity. I think I've talked to you about this before, but their creativity is massive. Like, it's amazing.
Oh yeah, that team is so talented. It blows my mind sometimes. I'm just like, wow. They can really put some really cool things together, and like Nioh and Nioh2 are pretty interesting games, and obviously similar to you, I used to play a lot of Ninja Gaiden, including the original NES ones, and it was just I remember a funny story is going into Nioh when I knew I had to research information about it. I hadn't really played it before. This is way before Nioh2 was out. Basically, I was like, okay, need me to do some research on this because I'm gonna need to learn it. Just I want to know what's going on. And I'll be honest, I was upset.
Oh yeah, what were you upset about?
I was upset because I was like, this is a Ninja Gaiden, man. And I was just trying to hammer through it, and Nioh is the type of game where the more you try to hammer through without actually learning some of the stuff, it's just worse it gets.
Yeah.
And so little by little, I started learning, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting it. I'm sort of understanding it. And then for me, Nioh2 was really like when I fell in love with the franchise. I was like, okay, this is really cool. I like the yokai abilities, the burst counters, and all that stuff, and the fact that there was 3 different forms. I thought it was really, really cool, the whole concept of it and how it all came together. So it's interesting, what the team puts together and what they hope that people see overall. I think that's at least my understanding, because that's kind of the way I took it. I was like, oh, look at all this hidden stuff that if you take enough time to research and just kind of mess with, can be a really, really fun. But some games are either really easy to pick up or sometimes a little bit harder to pick up, and I think that's kind of for any team. It's probably difficult to try to make sure that that the user gets a chance to try out everything and have fun with it, because it can be intimidating. There's so much stuff, there's so many features. It's interesting how they were able to put it all in a neat package.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. I guess, how do you play? I guess one thing I'd like to know is, how do you play Nioh2? Like, what's your experience like interacting with the game?
For me, Nioh, I play Nioh2 in a very scrubby way.
In a very scrubby way? Do tell.
I don't utilize everything I should utilize, and I think some of it is because I'm the type of person that when I play a game, I'll just try to burn through it so I can get all the good stuff later, and then start like adding all the crazy stuff, because I usually tend not to like swapping a lot of my equipment so much or too often, what I'm saying? But the game is kind of designed that way. It's for you to like constantly check out new builds and different stuff. And to me, it's like, just give me the good stuff right now. I'll look into it later and let's see what happens or whatever. So most of the time, I'm just trying to make sure I don't die. I take out the enemy's key, and then just do whatever attack does the most damage for the most part. But I do like, from time to time, when I'm just like fighting or helping another friend, then I'll just do like different combos. And like, all right, now it's time to have fun with it, because I'm such a higher level compared to my friend. Let me do these different combos and try different weapons or whatnot. So that's kind of the way I approach it right now. But I know once I kind of beat it completely, or kind of go towards the end game a little more, I'll probably experiment with more combinations and whatnot.
I guess just to give our whoever's listening, our viewers and whatnot, somewhat of an idea, but more of the specifics of how you play, what's your preferred weapon or weapons at this time?
Oh, the Switchglaive and the Split Staff. Those 2 weapons I really, really like. I do like the dual swords, though. The dual swords is pretty fun. I just haven't used them in a while. And the reason I like the dual swords, I just really like the cinematic feel when you're doing your parries. It's just something about it. It just looks really, really cool. You do a parry, and then you stab them in the foot, or you stab them on the side or whatever, and then the background blurs. So I really like that about the dual swords.
Now, which of the 6 parries do you use?
I know. There's so many.
There are so many. I know the community and I have joked about how like we should just rename them dual parries, and every attack is just a parry, because you've got Punish the Proud. You've got a Heavenly Flow, Earthly Flow, Strike, Demon Thrust, and then what is the last one? Piercing Wheel. And it's like, they're all in mid stance. Can't we have other things?
I know, but that's for me. That's one of the reasons I like it. I just like seeing how the game changes to a very nice, like, cinematic visual when you're in the middle of all that. And of course, when you play it on PC or the PS5 or whatever, everything even is kind of cranked up times 5 or 10. You know what I mean? You're like, wow, it looks even better now.
Oh
so
yeah.
I really like that. But split staff is kind of my go-to. I'm always doing the freaking Dragon Sense all the time because it's just so good.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's gotten a little bit toned down, but it's still really good. I really like it. If I'm not using the split staff or if I'm struggling with the split staff, that's when I bring out the switchblade, because the switchblade is like my ultimate weapon right there.
Oh,
like
I didn't realize that. I always under the assumption that you were a split staff main. I didn't even know that you played switchglaive at all. So you're actually switchglaive is your preferred weapon, but you've just been learning the split staff recently. Is that how it is?
Yeah, I've mainly been learning the split staff. I feel like I'm using the word learning very loosely here. It's more like I've been abusing the split staff.
Yes, to anybody listening, split staff is still ridiculous. Just because changing ways got nerfed doesn't mean the weapon isn't amazing, because it is. It's ridiculous.
It's a really good weapon. I like it. But when I struggle with it, I always seem to fall back on the switchglaive, because I feel like the switchglaive is just... it's an all-purpose weapon. It just does a lot of things that, other weapons do, but you have it all in one package. So that's why I go back to it when I feel like I'm struggling. But I usually don't stick with it because I feel like I'm just kind of steaming through everything. I don't want it to be that easy sometimes. So I feel like for me personally, when I use the switchglaive, like it can be a little too, simple for me. So I just go to the split staff and I enjoy the split staff.
Very interesting. That's really cool. What about soul cores? What are your favorite soul cores at this time?
Soul cores, man, I was a big fan of Gozuki, man. That was my favorite one. But then I get this vibe the team was peeping my stream and they said, no, we're gonna have to adjust it.
It did need an adjustment though, because I remember in one of the, like, a build video that I made, like, I just took footage. I remember I was making like a key damage sort of build, and then I realized like 90% of the key damage was pointless except Gozuki. So what I would do was like two things. I had Gozuki with a bunch of like anima bonuses based on grapple, and here's what I literally would do: Gozuki grapple, and just nonstop over and over again. I'm like, dude, no one can handle this. It was so comical.
It was just so good. But yeah, it did need to get an adjustment, and I still use it from time to time. I'm not using it right now on PC because I'm still trying to gather soul cores all over again. But I used to like that one. I am using the Ipun one now a lot more.
Yeah, Ipun, welcome to the club.
It's such a good one too.
It is.
I love Kasha. I haven't gotten to the Kasha section on PC, but I do love Kasha. Kasha is really good for like crowd control and just dealing a lot of damage to a bunch of people. It's almost like summoning a helper for temporarily. Yeah. So I like that. And then I'm trying to think of what other one I would use. I was using Nupepu for a while, but I just haven't decided what that third slot is going to be on PC. So those are kind of like the ones I'm jumping around with.
I remember when I popped in one of your streams, and by the way, if you guys don't know, Master does actually stream on Twitch. But when I had popped into one of your streams, I had actually been like, you know what you could try that's absolutely ridiculous? Dragon Dance and Otakemaru. That's all you need.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I really should mess with that one. I used to mess with the Takemaru a little bit, and I know a lot of people do like that one, but I haven't touched it for a while, so I need to go back to that once I unlock it again.
Like, I remember Otakemaru's gotten like 2-3 nerfs, and I'm like, it's still ridiculous. I mean, it makes sense because Otakemaru is supposed to be the strongest yokai, so thematically it makes sense. And it's like, all you gotta do is, if you have like a purity, it works best on purity split staff, but use like a corrupted one. But basically, use a purity split staff. Once the target is purified, throw out a Takemaru. It works best on bigger targets, and then they get confused. And then if you have like Masterful Slice as an Arcana on Dragon Dance, the enemy just can't do anything. You get so much anima, you can just like do a couple of hits of Dragon Dance, fire a Takemaru, and just like keep doing it back and forth. And there's like nothing they can do. So if you want a real power move, that's the way to go. And I'm suggesting that to you if you want to try it.
Hold on, I'm writing this down. I'll make
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
that
Take them notes.
I will let the team know.
Yeah, let the team know.
Before you know it, another patch.
It was funny in the Archipel AMA. I think the director himself had been asked if Otakimaru was going to get nerfed. He's like, no, it's the most powerful one. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. And then Gozuki key damage is intentional. I'm like, dang. So they very much are aware of this, but they're saying, hey, no, we specifically want this. That was quite fun as well.
I like how players like yourself and other people are kind of getting different ways to take advantage of some crazy builds. Like when I tune into like your stream and other people's stream, Zilaw's stream, I look at the kind of the stuff that gets set up, and although I'm not fully like watching exactly what armor you guys are setting up, but just seeing the way you guys take advantage either of the anima or the Amrita and all that stuff, so you guys can do whatever it is you want to do. It's just crazy to me. It's just, I wish I was at that level. I'm not there yet. Maybe one day I will be, but it's just, I look at that and I'm just like, that's pretty cool, man. You take the time to kind of figure this stuff out, and then of course other people get to do it too. They see the footage and they try to copy or emulate some of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's one of the cool things about being a part of the community, and I'm sure you have experience like this yourself. When people share the information, we can basically build off one another and collectively all reach newer heights. So Zilad, as you mentioned, has been really big about not using a single elixir. Like, that's his thing. He just never uses an elixir, and to compensate for that, he has his gear and his soul core setup basically facilitate a lot of life regeneration, and so it works really well for him, and he's been doing this since Nioh 1, whereas for me, I'm much more interested in reducing my key consumption as much as possible so I can be as combo-oriented as I can. And there's many other players, the Japanese YouTuber White Goat, for example, who is really big onto various things and has been an excellent showcase of the tech of item cancel, which surprised me, not so much that he's using it and that many other players use it, but that the company, Team Ninja itself, are okay with it. Like, I remember when I saw this, I'm like, dude, this is something that should be removed right away. Like, this totally goes against the game design. That's like me, like, thinking about being in the game designer head. I'm not qualified for that. And they're okay with pretty much all the tech we have. I think the director said in the Archipel AMA that as long as it doesn't break the game design, they literally don't care. They're always happy to have that. They're always happy to have player contributions like that. So it's been quite interesting to see how they're inspired in some sense to go with the tech and keep that tech in and then just build upon it in a way that feels good for everybody. I mean, I don't know if there are many other games that are able to provide as many creative outlets as Nioh, and certainly not as much as Nioh 2 has. Like, it's just, I've spent $80 on the deluxe edition, $50 on the complete edition. I'm like, dude, honestly, I would have spent like double, triple more. Like, no joke. It's given me so much gameplay. Like, my character on the PS4 alone, I think has over like 1,100 hours of gameplay. I'm like, dude, and I haven't even finished the Underworld.
So. Yeah, that I was kind of the same way too. I honestly, I mean, I knew I was gonna play Nioh for not just for work reasons, but I knew I was enjoying Nioh 2, and I didn't think I was gonna play it that many hours. And I'll look at that hour log, and I think I'm probably close to 1,000 now. And I was like, wow, it doesn't feel like I spent that much time, but I did, I guess.
Oh, yeah. It is remarkable just how much creativity is allotted in a game like this. And I think I think you have a direct hand in it, whether you may admit that or not. Because I think, for example, for us, and I will repeat this because it is important, I never expected that any of the suggestions myself or any from our community would have been implemented in one iota or another, like, at all. I just assumed it would fall upon deaf ears and I would just be frustrated and be like, hey, you could make this product so much better. So it was an absolute surprise when patch 1.24 dropped and it's like weapon adjustments for every weapon. I'm like, oh my god, this is awesome. It was so awesome to have just not only our concerns heard, but then other things we didn't take into consideration were also addressed. Like skills like Sword of Discernment all of a sudden got to speed up, and I'm like, I'd never thought it needed it, but they felt it was warranted. Great. Or like the ability Renegade Dragon on the Kusarigama, all of a sudden its tracking is just amazing now, and I feel so dirty using it. And it's just like, this is awesome. So I do think it bears repeating, thank you so much for that. You had a direct hand in that, at least in my opinion. So I humbly thank you for that.
For me, it's just a matter of getting all that information and just presenting it, at least giving the opportunity to have it presented. And, I leave it at that, really. That's what it comes down to. Because I think that's important. I think that's valuable. And, if the team decides to look at something and make the adjustment, then that's their call. But I want to give the community, when I'm out there and I'm looking for all the stuff that's going on, and seeing people that are giving feedback or that are really excited about something, like when they're kind of geeking out on Scampus or whatever, then I try to just at least present all that stuff. So again, it's really the community that played a hand in it. Honestly, it's not me. I'm just a transfer of information.
Being humble, of course. I guess I do have a question, and if you can't answer this, that is totally reasonable. So I think you have disclosed in the past that Team Ninja is, of course, planning some sorts of, they've stated, at least on Steam recently, that they're going to do like bug fixes and stuff like that. But will this effectively be more or less the end in terms of Nioh2's life cycle, in terms of content? Is there any, if this is something you can disclose, just can't I understand, but are we basically just going to be looking at, say, bug fixes and performance fix issues, or is there something else we can perhaps expect in the future?
Yeah, there's not really much for me to say in regards to any kind of, I guess you can say, add-on or content or anything like that. Okay. I mean, not that I'm aware of, I guess. But of course, there'll still be support for the game itself, just like the recent patch that just came out, actually. Okay.
Because I know, like myself, I was like, I remember when they released the free update alongside DLC 3, which included a bunch of weapon skills. I remember just how much of a difference it made having like one skill here for the dual swords, one skill here for the Tomfo. I'm like, dude, 2 skills completely changes the weapon for me. I want more. So I know I speak for many, many other people who are sincerely hoping for more content if possible. I would even pay for it, straight up.
I've seen those posts. I've seen people's like, if you bring more, I will pay it.
I'm like, dude, you have another skill pack, I will freaking drop $100. No issue whatsoever. Like, that's the type of quality we've come to expect from this product. And it's just, we're so enthusiastic about a game like this. We just can't, of course, I'm basically trying to eke out any sort of tease and trying not, and just try to make sure I can get something.
Unfortunately, I have no information to share.
There you go. That's all we can say. He said no information. Not that there won't ever be information in the future. Just no information at this time, guys. Let's hold on to that sliver of hope. Maybe. Okay, here's the content I want. Forget all the weapon skills. Can you tell me whether or not there's going to be an Ippon Datsura cosplay option in the game? Because I love Ippon, so I kind of need to have more information about that. Can you tell me anything in regards to that?
I got nothing for you, man. I got
nothing. Oh, man. Well, I guess just to be time conscious of you, what would you like to say on behalf of yourself and perhaps the team at large? Maybe something that us as the players should know that maybe has never been said before? Is there anything you can think of?
No, I think there's not a whole lot that I could say, but I would like to thank again the community for being understanding and being actually, I gotta give the community props for being so organized when it comes to sharing concerns. I know there's a lot of people that may not use outlets or platforms like Reddit or Discord or whatnot, but for those that do, I gotta give you guys props for that, for being able to organize stuff and kind of follow some general guidelines, because all that stuff is really good whenever I see some of the feedback or issues or bugs or whatever, so I can share with the team and whatnot. So I'm very thankful for that. I know at first it was probably a little bit weird, and I can see that when I first was kind of getting involved in a more deeper level, because some people, I remember, they're like, "Who's this guy? Who's this guy?"
I know
and I think it's important to, I guess, for any community manager or anybody that's in a similar role to kind of take a step back and also ask that question to yourself, like, yeah, who am I to these people? You know, they don't know me. They don't know me from random Joe off the street. So I have to, you know, try to establish that communication. And I have to be extremely understanding because that's what it takes. You know, it takes that. Even if somebody's like, this is a random guy, he's just being an asshole or something like that. You know what I mean? But the reality is like, you know, I can see why they would think that. But over time, I can see that players were just kind of like, okay, this person is who he says he is. And we should kind of communicate and whatnot. So I appreciate people taking the time and giving me an opportunity to essentially say, hey, I'm here to help out, you know?
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for, of course, just, I mean, there's lots of stuff behind the scenes we don't know about. And obviously many of us would like to know, but that's not going to be possible, unfortunately. But we still nonetheless appreciate all the time and all the effort that you have placed in regards to just listening to the community. I will say this, as I will be saying for literally forever. Thank you once again. And I guess that's a pretty good stopping point for the podcast, unless there's something else you'd like to add, perhaps that I missed.
No, just glad I could help. I'm glad we were able to make something happen here for the podcast. I hope the community enjoys it. I think you guys are just freaking amazing when it comes to a lot of the stuff that you guys upload on YouTube, even the photo stuff. I'm into everything. I'm a guy that's like into, you know, cosplay, photo modes, video, you know, tutorials, combos. So all that stuff, because I come from a lot of that stuff growing up and even before I joined the team, I personally appreciate it a lot because I look at it and be like, oh, that's really, really cool how they did that or whatever. Did you see that video recently, by the way? What's his name? Uploaded on Twitter?
Yeah. Those slowed down cinematic GIFs. I think it was like Sunhee Legend. Those are beautiful.
Dude, I see something like that and I'm just like, I'd be an idiot not to retweet this.
Oh yeah, I retweeted that immediately. I'm like, yo, this is the type of gameplay you're missing out on, man. Builds are great and all, but look at this whole dimension. Like that's been my whole angle.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I think a lot of people don't get a chance to see that sometimes. So I'm hoping, you know, the community continues to do stuff like that because if I see it or some of the accounts get tagged or I get tagged, I'll definitely take a look at it and see what it has and see if we can get more people to look at it because it's important. If you all grow, then we all grow. Right.
I completely agree with that sentiment. And, you know, you've... And as a way to thank you, I know you had asked me this, like, hey, was there like a top 10 list of soul cores? So I'll make that for you, man. And let me just tell you, and for anybody who's watching, you already know which one's number one, okay? We don't have to beat around the bush. It's obviously number one is Epone. Number two is Epone. 3 and through 10 are Epone, okay? So there you go. Need a soul core? Just go with Epone.
It's a good soul core.
it's the only soul core.
Well, I'm glad you had me on here. I'm glad we were able to make something happen, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. And again, I hope you guys, as my viewers, enjoyed this podcast. It was a real pleasure having Master here. He is on Twitch. He has a Twitter presence. He is very adamant in trying to listen to your concerns. So, nothing madam. Be nice. Don't have to be mean about it. He's a human being like any of us.
We are human.
we are human. Some of us are Epone. Just me. I mean, never mind. But yeah, seriously, thank you so much for being here. It's been a real pleasure. And yeah, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thanks.
All right. I'll see you later. Take care.
Bye.